As a timeline, my great-great-grandfather, James Archibald Sr. McVicar, came to the United States in the 1890s. I think it was around 1896. Okay, some say it's as early as the late 1880s. Okay, we can't figure it out. We can't pinpoint it. But what we do know is that he came with 3 brothers. And they arrived in Newfoundland from Belfast, Ireland. Okay? They weren't originally from Ireland. We're Scotch-Irish. So they're from Glasgow, Scotland. If you look at the McVicar family crest, it says Scotland on it. Our colors are red and white from the Scottish clan. Okay? McVicar. In Europe, names have meanings, especially for Irish and Scottish. A Mick, MC, is the son of. A vicar is a priest or a nobleman, depending on what period of history it is. The name McVicar has undergone 3 changes since the 1200s. Okay? So in the last 1,000 years, maybe 800 years, a little less than that, we've undergone 3 different changes in our name. It used to be MacBhiar, ICAR. In the 1200s, before that, in the 1200s, it changed to MacVicker. And then around in the 1700s, it changed to McVicar, the Mick of a vicar. Okay, when the Scottish and the Irish started merging. The cultures started intermingling. This is Ireland. This is Northern Ireland. This is all Scotland, and this is England. And together, with the exception of Ireland, so all Northern Ireland, Scotland, and England is called the United Kingdom. Okay? It's a religious thing. I'm not going to get into it. These guys here are Catholic. These guys here are Protestant. Okay? Spain is primarily Catholic. Mm-hmm. Where your family, Araiza, is originally from. Okay? Spain. They're Protestant, or they're Catholic. Here, they're half, I would say half and half, but mostly Protestant. So Catholic, I don't want to get into it. Anyway, let's go back to McVicar. Your great-great-great-grandfather came here, I would say, I'm estimating, in the 1890s, okay? And he was a ship engineer. He worked on a ship in the engine department. And he came here with his 2 brothers to Newfoundland, who hightailed it back to Belfast, okay? Because they didn't like it. They didn't like Canada. So they said, fuck this, I'm out. Your great-great-great-grandfather went around South America up to the coast and came in through San Francisco. And he was a ship's engineer, but he was also a blacksmith by trade. Okay, now, the McVicar family, since we've been in the New World, since we've been in the United States. Now, here's the other thing. All this shit happened after slavery. We arrived here after the Civil War. Okay? The McVicar family wasn't here for all the original history of the United States. We came here after all that bullshit. Our country outlawed slavery way before the Americas. Our England did. The UK did. So then James Archibald Jr. was born, and primarily he was raised in Northern California, and he died in Boonville in the 1960s. Mendocino County, Boonville.
That's the story about him in the shed skinning a deer?
No? He was just your grandma was in the yard and watched him die. He died of a heart attack.
Okay. My mom took me and we walked up to the house and no one answered, so we walked away, I believe. Huh. But that house it's seen from the highway.
Yeah, it's just right there on the main road.
And what time frame would you say that is?
1960s, he died.
So he lived there from, let's say, like the 1920s to the 1960s?
No. They lived in Grass Valley, California. Grass Valley and Morgan Valley, and I might get to it later, but that's where they lived. and then they moved to Boonville, kind of settling down, and then that's where he died. In fact, I don't even think your great-grandfather lived with them at this time. He was in the 60s. He was already off doing his own thing. So,
military-wise, or this is after.
In the 60s, yes, he was just finishing his military/merchant marine career.
How many years did he do?
I have his resume here.
Oh, wow.
I'll show you his resume. Your great-grandfather's resume, I have it right here. And I'm going to show you pictures I have of him in the Navy and Coast Guard. Your great-uncle was a Marine. Yeah. His name was Mike McVicar. I'll show you a picture of him too if I can find it. I have it. He was a sergeant. He served in Korea in the 1950s as a Marine. Bet you didn't know that, huh?
Dang.
I've never met him. The guy lives in Oregon, I think, today.
He's still alive.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my gosh.
But
how crazy?
No, wait. No. Mike McVicar ended up marrying a Polish violinist, and they play for the Mexican orchestra today. Famous violinist, both he and his wife, and they live in Mexico City, and they play for the Mexican orchestra. Mm-hmm. Didn't know that, did you? We have family in the Mexican National Orchestra. Famous violinists, like some of the best violinists in all the country. Yeah, we have some pretty famous family members. Kevin Costner, the actor, he's my third cousin. Our family Styles, okay? Styles, okay. You ever heard of Yale College? Yale University?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Okay, the Styles family founded that college, that university. It's called the university now. When the college was first founded in the 1700s, a part of our family helped found that. They were from the British royal family. And that's the Styles. His name was Sir Edgar Styles. Okay, 1700s. Related to us by marriage from way the back when. But still, it's kind of cool. That college, that university, was in part ordered by the royal family to our family to establish that college. Let's see. Now, Styles, your great grandma, their family discovered Yosemite Valley. Okay, the Sierra Nevada range in California, the first explorers, part of your family. But again, these guys are far removed from you. But the McVicar, they're a little bit closer, but still not McVicars. They're married into our McVicar clan by the name. Now, but when I talk about Irish and Scottish and English, look at that map right there. Okay, that's the UK, the United Kingdom. Now, most of the time they don't consider Ireland. If you go to Ireland and they say, "Are you guys part of the UK?" they'll say F no, because they're all Catholic down there and there's a history there. But Northern Ireland is where Belfast is, where our family's from. It's part of the UK. My mother's side, on your mom's side, my great grandma has been here in this country for a very long time. Okay, the Stovers, and that's where the Kevin Costner comes into play. We're related to them on my real mother's side. They're from England and Germany. So the Stover name, your mother's maiden name is Stover. They're English and German, mostly English. Okay, so the bulk of your family on your mom's side, your great-great-grandfather, he was a blacksmithing
Here's a result from the web.
Well, fuck you. I didn't ask your opinion, bitch, mate. In the McVicar clan, blacksmithing has long been the profession. And shipbuilding and engineering, okay? Engineering and blacksmithing has long, for hundreds and hundreds of years, has been our profession. Your grandfather and me are probably the first ones to break with that in hundreds of years, okay? Just so you know that. Blacksmithing is working with metal. My great-great-grandfather passed that skill on to my great-grandfather, and my great-grandfather had a shop in Grass Valley called, now all this shit's in Cali, right? They settled in California. When my great-great-grandfather came around from Newfoundland, they said they came in through San Francisco. I actually found the records when my great-grandfather got off the boat and they settled in California. I have the records of the signature of my great-grandfather. Okay?
What year was that?
1890s.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's a conflict. They say that they arrived in Newfoundland to the Americas before that. So I only have the date, or I had it. I don't have it documented, but I've seen it before, where it was 1896 or 1898. I don't remember exactly. But that's when he came to San Francisco. And he was the ship's engineer. Okay? And then your it's hard for me to put it into your perspective, because I think for me, my great-grandfather was born. And that's the one who died in Boonville. Okay?
Okay.
Now.
And he had James Bronson McVicar.
And James Bronson McVicar was born in 1916, in September of 1916. Okay?
One quick comment. I found a penny from 1914, and I thought that was the year he was born, so I kept it, and I still have it. But now I know it's not.
I've showed you my guns, right?
Yes, one of them was his. Yeah.
That one gun that I have that I showed you, the 3040 Craig, was your great-great-grandfather's. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's been in our family for over 100 years. It's been in our family. That gun was made around 1890s. Okay? That gun was used in the Spanish-American War when the United States went to war with Spain. Okay? When we beat their fucking ass. That gun was used. Your great-great-great-grandfather bought that gun. And when not James Bronson, his father.
Archibald Jr.
His father's father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Junior. Bought that gun. And used it to hunt deer and elk and put food on the table back then for our family to eat. Okay, that gun I have right in that other room.
You showed me it before,
yeah.
But it was just real quick in the last apartment.
Yeah. So that gun's been in our family for over 100 years. Okay? And it still works. And I still have the ammo, and I have the reload. I can reload ammo. I can make ammo for that gun. Okay? That's the tradition of that gun. It's hard for me to talk about. I've never talked about this before. Your great-great-great-grandfather put meat on the table with that very rifle that's in there. There's another rifle I have in there. It's a .22. Your great-grandfather put meat on the table with that gun.
And that's probably
I have 3 guns in there that have been in our family
82 over
for almost 100 years. Well, one for a little less than 100 years, and 2 for about 100 years. Or more, way more. Okay? Your great-grandfather was born in September of 1916. And he was born in Alameda, California. And he was raised primarily in Morgan Valley and Grass Valley. They moved all around. So now I'm getting to your great-grandfather. My grandfather and like my fatherly role model.
I only have little memories with him, and one of them is shooting turkey off the porch.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the house he built. That made like the newspaper. McVicars building a house at 80 something years old or something like that.
Yeah.
And then
he was 89 years old. That house you're talking about is in Lakeport, right?
Yes.
Okay. He was 89 years old when he built that house.
Oh.
89.
And then the other memories I have is a house on the lake, and we'd go in the backyard and swim at the lake. And Grandma Millie, told me that they sold that house so that they could move to the house in Lakeport.
Before I get married to you, because I don't just jump into things, you know what I mean? So I prayed about it, and the Lord said, if you marry him, he'll show you places and bring you places that you never have been, said the Lord. Yeah, and he did. He built me 3 homes. He was a captain on the ship in New Orleans. Grandpa had a lot of praise when I was all the trip. He was a captain, he was a seaman, he was a builder, he boxed, he did everything you want to name it.
Yeah. I remember we used to shoot turkey.
Yeah.
From the house.
I know. Yeah.
And he was like
But Grandpa
80
was a very
something.
smart man, though.
Yeah.
I think Rachel gets a lot of that talent. I think you get it from Grandpa myself. Rachel. And he met me. And he says, you're the best little girl I ever met my whole life. And you know, men get around, some of them. You know, way old, yeah. And his first wife got along terrible. But you know, Rachel.
Were you guys together married? How long were you guys married
60
for?
years.
60?
I hope I live as long as Grandpa, my husband. At 94. Grandpa would have made 100 if he wouldn't have built that house, so he would have. He was healthy though, Ray. And way healthier than Grandma was. He was a smart man, don't you think, my husband?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How, Ray? Grandpa was.
It's almost...
He took me from Fort Bragg, and we were going to go to Clear Lake. And we saw the water. He said, you know what, honey? I said, yes. He said, you see that water? I'm going to build you a house right by that water. And by golly, he did. He got it water for me and built me a house.
Where?
Remember that house?
Yeah.
I remember you guys used to live on the water.
Yeah.
But I was so young, I don't remember a lot.
Actually, you weren't even
I
born
always
yet.
thought you were handsome. But travel before you ever get tied up with a woman. Do what you want to do. Because life is short. And God could come anytime. Me and John believe he's going to come soon. I do. I really do. I really do.
The one that he built.
Okay. Yeah, that house, it wasn't the backyard, it was across the street off the dock.
Okay.
The house they only lived in for a couple of years. That's it. This is your great-great-grandfather, okay, in 1951. He's a third mate, and he's on a naval tanker here. He's a third mate. So he's so this is 1951. He's in the Merchant Marines, I think, or the Navy.
Wow.
So that's the equivalent. He was a second lieutenant or lieutenant in the U.S. Navy. I looked up his records when I was in the Marine Corps. He's listed as an 03. And an 03 in the Marines, that would be a captain. Okay? In the Navy, that's a lieutenant. So you know I'm in contact with the skipper,
Morning Star.
He built this the year I was born. It was finished in 1977. That's called the Morning Star. Okay, he built that. It's one of 3 boats your great-great-grandfather built. Or your great-grandpa built.
So before, you told me it's in Athens, Greece, but before that, where was it at? Where did he build
it was built in Santa Cruz. It was built for the mission, for a church. And then it served in the evangelical missions, running medical supplies to the Philippines, in the 70s. You'd have to understand the whole history of the Philippines. They were a Spanish colony, and then they were taken over by the Japanese in the 40s. And then America won them back, and then we gave them their independence, and all that shit. But anyway, Christianity was expanding in the 70s, big time throughout Southeast Asia, and there's a lot of poor people. So one of the first things that boat did, and that was a steel boat too, is your great grandfather skippered that boat for several missions over to the Philippines. Your great grandma cooked for all the crew. She did all the cooking for that. They made a few trips, but then the boat was sold, and it was sold to an evangelical church out of Chicago.
That's who currently has it today.
They own it, but it's technically, no, they don't own it. They sold that boat for $1. And the boat is now owned by Hellenic Ministries. Hellenic Ministries is based out of Chicago. But the boat is stationed in Greece. So this is your great-grandfather's resume. Your great-grandpa ran away from home at a very young age. And he was caught on the ship when they were in Hawaii. I think it was a Navy ship that he was caught. It was a stowaway. This kind of thing doesn't happen in today's world. But back in the 20s, it happened. In the early 30s, it happened a lot. And the captain said to him, I'll give you your choice. You can either go to jail. I think they were in Honolulu. You can go to jail. Or you can work on the ship and get off when we get back to San Francisco. So your great-grandpa was like, yeah, I'll work. Go back to San Francisco. Your grandpa did some things. Your great-grandfather did some things. Then he enlisted in the Navy as soon as he could. But my great-grandpa beat the shit out of your great-grandpa. That's why he wanted to get away. He was the oldest. The second oldest, his name was Sidney. Heidi's grandpa, that's who we're talking about, Sidney. He's the second oldest in the McVicar family. Maybe after Ruth. In 1932, this is when he stowed away on the ship out of San Francisco to Hawaii. It was hot. He didn't even complete high school. In 1933, he joined the Navy and went to sea. He got out. Moved back to Grass Valley, California in 1935. And worked for my great-grandfather in the family business, blacksmithing. In 1936, he joined the Navy again. And he started out as a junior enlisted, worked his way up to become a bosun's mate, and studied celestial navigation. In the 30s, that's when they didn't have GPS back then. They used to navigate by the stars and radio communication. Got out of the Navy, went to Alaska. Your great-grandpa had a hell of a life, dude. Did so many things, doesn't even encompass all this shit. So, he worked as a blacksmith's helper in Alaska, because that's the family business, for a while. And then he worked in the gold mines, and learned gold mining. How to dig for gold. And then in 1939, he went and learned more advanced blacksmithing and welding, fabrication, things like that. How to really use metal and do some cool shit. Now your great-great-grandfather at this time had a pretty successful tool business in Grass Valley, California. He made tools. Today, like all the stuff we saw at Harbor Freight, that's pressed, okay? So they pour liquid metal into a cast and they press it with a machine. Back then, they didn't have a whole lot of this. So the blacksmiths had to make the tools. They had to pound them out. Okay? They had presses, but they weren't like they are today. So that's your great-grandpa, you learned to do that. You learned to hammer it out. And more advanced blacksmithing. And in 1940, he started a blacksmith shop in San Leandro, California. In 41, he sold that business. He went to Seattle, Washington, and he worked as a blacksmith for the Young Iron Works to get a draft classification 2A. And he worked night shift and went to the University of Washington. Okay? He never completed his degree there. Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. He enlisted into the Navy. Okay? He sold his business. He went to Seattle, Washington, and worked as a blacksmith for Young Iron Works to get draft classification 2A. Pearl Harbor happened. They bombed it December 7th. On an 8th, I joined the Coast Guard. Oh, so it wasn't the Coast Guard. It was the Navy. Sorry. So he was in the Navy before that for a couple years. It was a 3-year enlistment. He enlisted as an apprentice seaman. Okay, so that's in E1. And in 2 years had advanced to a bosun's mate. Wow. That's pretty quick. He worked in the office and he taught seamanship and navigations class. But to be a bosun's mate is couple years is pretty tough.
That'd be E4? E1 to E4 in 2 years?
Well, the bosun's mate is the mates, like, back then. It was like one of the highest ranking on the boat for enlisted. So he really worked his way up. 1944, Coast Guard promoted me to command. So he was an acting captain in the Coast Guard. Oh, and this is when he was, wow, this is pretty cool. His history as a boat commander, as a captain, acting captain of a boat, because he was only a lieutenant. As an acting captain, he put his boat into Astoria, Oregon in the 40s during a storm. I was there at Job Corps at the same location he was at. I stayed in the officer's barracks. I lived there for over a year before I joined the Marines. And in the 1940s, he was there. Coast Guard promoted me to command of a 63-foot crouch rescue craft, the United States Coast Guard ship 63038. In 1945, the 3-year enlistment ended as Germany surrendered and I could be discharged, which I did choose to do, and went back to sea as a second mate on a merchant marine ship. So now he's second mate. So there's first mate, there's captain, first mate, and second mate. So he's third in command on the merchant marine ship. In 1946, your great-grandfather, after JV Day, signed up as a third mate on the U.S. Corps of Engineers. Oh, the Corps of Engineers. Seago and hopper dredgers served on several of the next few years. So he did that until 1946. He was building boats and operating a yacht harbor for Boats Incorporated. Then started by my own marine contracting business. Bought several surplus U.S. Navy ships and boats. A 128-foot yard minesweeper. Oh, this is interesting. I remember his stories on this. And 2 167-foot LCIs, 2 110-foot sub-chasers, and sold the sub-chasers and parted the other vessels out and sold the machinery and parts. Also bought over 150 36-foot whatever, sold engines, junked out the hull. Okay, so this is post-World War II, right? The United States built a shit ton of ships. Most of them were called Liberty ships. but we built a lot of ships. And the Navy just gave them away, pretty much. The Navy just said, we don't need all these ships. And a lot of private investors came in and bought them and either sold the metal or turned the ships into like commercial ventures, right? Your great-grandfather came in and bought a shitload of these boats and reworked them, sold some, but most of them, they cut down and they sold the metal. He was a blacksmith, so he knew how to work with the metal. Okay? 1952, he was discharged from the Navy. So this picture is in 1951. This was actually a year before he was out of the Navy. And that's him operating a sextant. That instrument he has there, that measures the horizon to the stars, and it gives you a bearing on where you are in the latitude of the Earth. Okay? That sextant is still in our family. My great uncle Jimmy has it, and I'm supposed to get that sextant, that device that he's using. In 1953, after he got out of the Navy, he went back to sea. He transferred from the local 90 masters and worked on numerous ships out of New Orleans. This is when he met your great-grandma. San Francisco to local 16 New Orleans and left for the Gulf of Mexico. After sitting and receiving my shipmaster's license and ran smaller ships in the Gulf at Mexico, I worked for Hoff-Kroger Engineers and Austin Bridge Company building. So, in 1953, my father was born in 1956, I think. So by this time now, he married your great-grandma, Millie. And he took his wife and new baby to California, my father, and started my own forge business, set up a boiler and steam hammer at 1441 4th Street in Oakland, California. That business was called Berkeley Forge and Steel. Okay? That business he co-founded, he doesn't say it here, but he actually co-founded that with my great uncle Sid McVicar, Heidi's grandfather. Okay? They co-own that business. Heidi's grandpa brought the money. My grandfather brought the expertise and the knowledge of running the business and forging. Okay? Heidi's grandfather brought the money from his thing. And he was a really good businessman too. But my grandfather brought the forging knowledge. He never picked it up from my great-grandfather. My grandfather did. Heidi's grandpa was very business savvy. My grandpa was tech savvy. He knew how to do it. So they merged and they bought this. They created this business called Berkeley Forge and Steel. Now, if you ever get in defense contracting, in my world, what I do today, you'll learn about ATK Orbital. These are two companies that merged. ATK was one of the contracted primes that contracted my grandfather's company to make the O-rings in the 1960s for NASA's space program. Pretty cool. Your great-grandfather's company, Berkeley Forge and Steel, made the O-rings for the rockets that took our astronauts to the moon. Our family line, has a good legacy, bro. We come from good stock. Smart motherfuckers, okay? Very, very fucking wealthy. Famous. We work hard since we came to this country, okay? Anywho, alright. So, in 1959, the recession, and I went broke. Sold equipment, bought a hard rock gold mine. So I'm going to stop for a second there. And this is where Uncle Brian comes into play, who you've met. You probably know him better than your own great-grandpa. Uncle Brian was a corpsman in the Navy. He followed after my grandfather, wanted to join the Navy. And his father, who was in the Navy. Both of them had a love for gold mining. Everything about gold mining was learned by your great-grandfather back up here when he went to Alaska. Remember? He taught my Uncle Brian how to gold mine. Okay? I don't know if it's in here, but my grandfather actually owned a gold mine. Might be in here. I don't know. Anyway, this is 1959. It was called the Twin Sisters. Oh, here it is. Twin Sisters Mines in Nevada. It went well, and after 7 years, he sold it to Colonel William Westall. He sold it to a large mining company, and it is producing mine today. I studied mining engineering. So my grandpa likes to embellish certain things, make things sound like it's a little bit better. This is a resume, you know. So but I know the truth. So anyway, it wasn't that great. The mine was a bust. It wasn't successful. So, but who cares, right? It's a resume. So I built a 40-foot steel Seabird design sailing yawl, okay, in 1965. That boat was, so now he's talking about a boat. That boat was called the Beulah Faith, which I may have a picture here I'll show you later. That boat was named after one of my youngest great aunts who died. She was 20-something when she died, or 19. But, I mean, it's not in here. That's just in our family history. Okay. In 1968, they moved to Stinson Beach, California. I don't know what this handwriting says. Anyway, School of San Francisco. Got my general near ocean contractor license. Okay, so in 1968, he became a general contractor. That's when he learned to start building homes. Okay. In 1968, I built a home on piles for Sheriff Walter Selmore of Marin County. So our family, most of our family history is in the Bay Area, in Marin, okay? The North Bay, in San Francisco, in Oakland, Alameda. That's where most of our family history occurs. In 1970, he moved to No-Yo Harbor, Fort Bragg. I should mention Fort Bragg's a big part of our history, okay? It's where your grandfather met your grandma and all that shit. All that shit happened in Fort Bragg. So in 1970, so your grandfather would have been late teens by this time. I think he was born in 1958. He had numerous jobs. He was a millwright, hardwood lumber company in Branscombe, that's up north from Mendocino, and built lumber mill into a modern machinery. I don't know what that means. In 1973, he took building contracts in many small areas of California. He built 2 homes in Grass Valley. He built a church for the global evangelism. So that's what the Morning Star was for.
This is still my great grandfather.
Yes.
Okay.
All this is great grandpa.
Okay.
Your great grandpa, my grandfather. And then in
My father always talks about, my father Jose Ariza always talks about him working on Branscombe Road in the logging company out there towards Westport.
So it says here, in 1973, he went to Santa Cruz, California and built the Morning Star. I thought it was in 77, so this conflicts with what I know. Had this sailed all over the world. Maybe it was completed in 77, but it was started in 73, 74. I don't know. Anyway, in 77, that's the year I was born, he contracted mostly millwright jobs with big industrial companies. From 79 to 83, he built large homes for Howard and Eva Arnston. You know, $3 million homes. He had other little jobs, blah, blah, blah. I think he wrote this job because he wrote this resume because he wanted to finish his bachelor's at Washington State and they wanted a resume from him. That's why he wrote this. In 81, I purchased 40 acres in Lower Lake, California. And I'm going to skip some of this. 2 trailers, truck cab for all my homestead mining company. The offices. Okay, so that was 1981, 83, waterfront lot. Okay, let me stop there. So, my grandfather, your great grandfather, owned this 40 acres. I remember this property in 1981. And there was gold there. your mom and I used to go to this property in Lower Lake, and we lived in Grass Valley, and we used to pick plums and prunes, and your mom and I used to pick blackberries when we were kids, and your great grandma used to make us pie and jam with it. So good. And your mother's favorite jam was, I think, apricot, and mine was butter something. Anyway. So in 1983, they purchased a waterfront property on Clear Lake Park and built a home on. One second. You know, I've never read this all the way through. Oh, wow. Okay. So this goes up to 1989. Doesn't even talk about. So you know that home you said that you went across the street and swam?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you wrote this. What year were you born?
97. It was early 2000s, I'm guessing.
Wow. He abandoned his children. Your grandfather did, my father. Abandoned your mother, abandoned me. To foster homes, to the system, to being homeless. He doesn't deserve any mention, if any, just his name in my family. So I carry on the McVicar name. My stepbrother Jimmy will carry on my name. He, my son Adam McVicar, will know our family history. What he will know about his grandfather is that he was a nobody. Okay? Well, he'll know more than that. I should be fair. He'll know that he had ample opportunity in his life to be successful, to provide for his family, and to be a contributing member to society. And he failed at all three of those goals. He chose drugs over that, right? Now, your mother's father, you're going to get the straight up truth, as well as about your grandma, Linda McVicar, or Linda, whatever she goes by, Dimitri Stover McVicar. Okay? I will tell you the truth. I'm unbiased. I have my own story. Your mother has her own story. We have different views. Neither of them are the correct views. That's just our interpretation of them. I was close to your grandma when she died, my mom. Make no mistake about it. I didn't grow up with her. Nor did your mom. We didn't grow up with our real mom. Your grandma. You ever want to know about her from my perspective, then you can ask me. But at the moment, we're doing the McVicar family, which is your mother's father's line. Okay? You are half my blood. You're half McVicar. Okay? And Stowe. Actually, you're a quarter McVicar. Mm-hmm. And a quarter.